Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of
A Fan's Perspective.
This week, guys, we are getting back into our Legend of Korra series, and today we are joined by one of this show's most staunch defenders that I know. He and I have been friends for, 13 years at this point, Ted? Something like that?
Pretty close, something around there.
He don't even remember.
But, guys, we are joined by Mr. Teddy Woodard. And how are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing all right. Ready to defend Korra, my life as usual.
See, the thing is, you're not going to have to actually defend her, though. We like the show and we like the character. I don't think in either of our past episodes we have dogged Korra as an individual. We have dogged more so the arc that the writers put her on and some of the decisions that they made. That,
Fair.
we both stand by that Korra herself is a very enjoyable character and that the show itself is great.
I think she's an excellent character.
Yeah, no, I agree.
But, today, guys, we are talking about, Book 3 Change, which for most Avatar series fans is... One, most people agree it's the best season of Korra, and two, most people agree that it's one of the best seasons of Avatar. There's only 7 to pick from, but still. This season sees a lot of character development for multiple characters, and in my opinion, probably the most interesting out of all the villains we face. Because Zaheer is that dude. I think
he's a savage.
He is easily the most interesting villain I think that we get, including season 4 of Korra. I think he's easily the most cunning out of all of them, in my opinion, because this dude somehow just knew he was gonna unlock airbending after harmonic convergence occurred. I don't know how they fully set that up, but the way that he already had a pretty good control over airbending after he just got it was insane. Because I wasn't expecting that to happen at all when I first started watching the series.
Oh, I was gonna say. So, Teddy, how do you feel about that? Is this your favorite season of Korra, or do you enjoy another season more? What are your thoughts on what CJ said?
So I love season 3 of Korra. In fact, for me, it's probably my favorite season out of all of Avatar. Period.
I understand that.
I honestly love Zaheer and what he represents, because CJ was saying, not only is he extremely powerful, extremely quickly, his thought processes really aren't that different from Korra's.
Mm-hmm.
He shapes them a little differently, and obviously he's a villain, so he's a little more evil in his intentions, but their thought process and the way that they operate are very similar, which I appreciate.
Yeah, and I know each villain of Korra kind of has a specific theme behind it. For those who aren't familiar, Zaheer is anarchy, correct?
Yes.
He wants to destroy all types of forms of control, essentially, and that includes the Avatar. And that's how we get involved with, our hero, Korra. But CJ, where do you want to go from this?
So the first thing I want to go from here is kind of how this does answer one of the big questions that season 2 prompted: why Korra had to be hidden when she was younger. Because that was something that they brought up early on. They brought up early on, and was part of the reason that she and her dad got into it in season 2 was that she was hidden away at the Southern Water Tribe, just training for her whole life instead of going and expanding and learning about the world the way the other avatars had. And it's because Zaheer and the rest of the squad were trying to take her. And I think that was a really cool way of incorporating them into the season and showing how much of a threat they've always been.
Mm-hmm.
And at the same time, I also appreciate the fact that we again expanded the world of Korra beyond Republic City and beyond the Northern Water Tribe. Because this time, we're back in Ba Sing Se, we're back in the Earth Kingdom, and we learn not only more about how things have kind of changed but stayed the same out there.
Mm-hmm.
But we also get more backstory on our old Team Avatar because we get to meet not only Zuko as an adult, as like a full grown adult, but we get to meet Toph's other kid, Sue.
Mm-hmm.
And like I was really happy that they expanded this because it made the world feel bigger than what they had done in season 1 or season 2.
And I think I appreciate it too, that the fact that finally the seasons were actually tied together and not a very loose sense of, well, these are the same characters, so they're tied. Like they actually had elements from season 2 that swept into season 3, and then I appreciated that going into season 4 they did the same things. Like these things, little things, like finally there was cohesion, which was kind of missing between 1 and 2.
And like we've gotten into the reason why it wasn't really there in 1 and 2. Like in season 1, you go in, make the whole thing thinking, oh, this is going to be a mini series, and then halfway through production, they're like, oh, we want to make this a series, and like, oh, okay, we didn't set up anything, but sure, we can try. And that kind of leads into what you said, where there really wasn't a lot of overflow or cohesion between the first 2 seasons, but then this one, like you said, really builds on season 2. But Ted, what would you say were some of the more interesting character aspects of this season? Like what about it makes you say that this is your favorite season of Avatar, period?
For me, it was like we finally have an entire team of adversaries for the Avatar team to face that were all extremely deadly. While in Avatar Last Airbender, like yes, we had Azula's squad, but it wasn't the same as having the four of the most dangerous people that are basically an anti-Avatar team hunting you.
Yep.
So for me, having that, like the stakes were a lot higher, and because it wasn't like, okay, well, if you beat Ty Lee and what was Zuko's girlfriend's name?
Mai.
If you take them down, it's like, okay, like you still really have to face Azula. But with this season, it's like these other people aren't just, okay, I mean, we could take them and then all team up on Zaheer. Like, no.
Yeah.
These are basically one-on-ones. Like you have to beat the person in front of you.
Yeah, you basically you had an airbender, a lava bender, a water bender that like could turn her, like had better water control.
Had
no arms, yeah.
And therefore had to use the water as her arms. And then you had a combustion bender, who we all remember gave Aang problems back in The Last Airbender.
Who Aang never beat.
True.
Also.
You can tell from their introductions too. Their introductions were very well done. Just showing their each individual prisons and like the circumstances in which they're at. Like, hey, we on the water because he can't be on Earth. You know, we frozen because
there can't be any kind of heat in the air at all.
Yeah, there can't be any type of heat.
We're in a volcano because water can't exist. How she was surviving, I don't really understand, because you kind of need water to live. But you know, it's a TV show.
I guess they found a way.
Yeah, what I think was the scariest thing about that is like Zaheer had no bending, and he was locked away far. Well, you had to have a whole bridge created just to get to him. Like he was a problem before the bending.
But yeah, and something just real quick, CJ, something that this season handles better in terms of his villains is just how they're presented beforehand. It's the lack of information and what you're allowed to visually see rather than just being told. Because with Unalaq, you know, you're like, oh, okay, he just like the weaker, kind of smarter dude, weaker than his brother in a sense, but he's smart, conniving. It's just like, okay, I can see where this is going. He's going to trick somebody and some stuff's going to happen. But with these guys, it's just like the level of intensity in which, like I said, just seeing how they were locked up sets up in your mind was like amazing.
Yeah, and then the other thing that they do is by giving us this, we get to see them by giving them basically a prison break for each character. You get to see all of them in action and fighting against. I mean, in Korra, let's be real, the White Lotus isn't the exact same thing as what the White Lotus is in The Last Airbender, but you see them fight against what should be really strong benders and people that should know how to fight against them.
Reminded me of they're the equivalent of Ambu. And they're basically the Ambu of Korra. My man, cool. But
the only go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, you got.
I think the only difference, like, too, is that the White Lotus, for all we know, they were always moderately strong. We just saw like 4 commanders, so like that was the thing. So it wasn't like the White Lotus necessarily dropped. It's like we saw the commanders, like the people that were like really the head of it, going at it. So we don't know. The White Lotus may have never been that strong.
True.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
And that's actually funny enough. That's the same argument I have about the Ambu whenever we get to that conversation. Like, not all of them are gonna be like Kakashi or Itachi. Like, I get it. That's a Naruto reference for those who don't know. But so Teddy, I'm curious. How do you feel about this season in terms of flaws? Do you feel like this season is flawed? Do you feel like it is? Is there anything that you didn't like personally? How do you feel about that?
So I don't think it has a lot of flaws. I think one of the things that kind of fell by the wayside, and aside from it's like them helping in the big finale, like the Airbenders really weren't that important. Like, they tried to sell it as them being so important and like we have to find it. But then, like, when they kind of find them, other than that one training sequence, they really didn't matter. It would I would have been fine if that time they were looking for them and just spent more time with Jinora, because that's all that really happened. Was we got more. No, Jinora's a badass. Like, she's really extremely powerful. Because that was the big thing. It wasn't that, like, all these airbenders are back, which was cool, which was fine. It was and very necessary. That was part of Korra bringing back more balance in a way. But all it really did was prop Jinora up. And we could have done that without having to, like, search. Because other than what? Jinora, Boomy, and what's the man with the Jinora's love interest, Kaya.
What's his name? Kite or something?
Kai?
I don't.
Kai.
Yeah.
Those were the only interesting airbenders.
True.
Like, that were added that got more screen time. The rest of them were pretty plain.
I do enjoy the scene with her on the bridge with the guy. I feel like that's a very well done scene and good development. You know, every superhero, which the Avatar kind of is, needs a scene like that grounds them. And I feel like that was a good scene for her. Me personally, I do not like how the airbend. I don't. And going back to how you said it, I like that it happened. I don't like how it happened. In terms of them bringing back the airbenders, I feel like it was kind of like a quick slap, like a quick fix, essentially. And at the same time, it's just like the whole impact of having like a genocide happen in your story is kind of like, okay, well, we did some magic stuff and now they're back. Like, the world just balanced out. So I didn't particularly care for that, but I do like that airbenders were back in some fashion.
Yeah. And I think I also kind of liked that a lot of them were like, no, I don't want to do that. Like, I have a life. Like, that makes sense. I thought that was extremely realistic. Like, I don't care that I'm suddenly this like powerful like air master. I have one person had a wife and kids
and a farm to take care of. Like, he had to like raise his family, and like that's one thing that this season definitely does. Like, they do go out of their way to show that Tenzin is human. Like Tenzin, in my opinion, is the most human character of the entire series, because you see every aspect of him almost. You see him as a dad. You see him as a teacher. You see him as a fighter. You also see him as a son. Yep. But like, you also see that when it comes to him trying to convince people that his lifestyle and like becoming an airbender and an actual becoming like a nomad is something worth doing. He's terrible at convincing people of that. He's like,
you got to be born into that, bro.
right? You gotta,
Like, and let's be honest, being airman and nomad once you're used to like civilization sucks.
Oh
Like,
yeah, no, it'd be
it
trash.
sucks.
It'd be trash. The whole reason so many people they were even able to get so many people was because they were kidnapped by the Earth Queen.
Right.
Like that, like almost everyone that they were able to recruit to their side were people that one either were living on their own and didn't really have anything going for them, or two, like basically were enemies of the state in Ba Sing Se. So they had to they had to flee to safety. So it really does, like, because I remember I was watching that episode where they're just going to place and like the door keeps getting slammed on their face and nothing Tenzin says is convincing at all.
Yeah. Why?
Like,
Why?
you give up all your worldly possessions.
Lifestyle.
You get to shave your head. Like, no. What? Why would anyone do this? And then it takes Bolin having him like Tenzin show off how cool airbending can be to actually convince some people it's worth something.
Yeah, which is kind of realistic too. Like everyone likes
True.
shiny and new.
Yeah, true. Like go ahead.
I was just gonna say, now that I'm thinking about it, that kind of ties into the grander theme of airbending and how the people didn't want to commit to it because they had or ended up having these earthly attachments, which is funny because later on in the series, you have that revelation with Zaheer, who lets go of all of his earthly attachments and gives him a new airbending ability.
He had one earthly attachment, and that was stripped from him unwillingly.
Yeah,
true.
That's all I was gonna say. It was forcibly removed. Like he didn't do it on purpose. Like he had no other choice at that point.
And that just since we're talking about that,
yeah,
that is
I was about to say
a cool kill. When that happens to me,
yeah,
like with the combustion girl.
That's the thing. This season is easily the most like. It's when you could tell that the creators of Avatar were like, okay, we can kind of blur the lines between a kid show and an adult show a little bit more now. We don't just have to kill somebody by having them get hit in the head with a rock and suddenly black out, like they did with Jet in The Last Airbender. Like, not only do you get Zaheer basically suffocating the Earth Queen on camera, like you see it happen. Like that was a good kill, but then you got how Pai Li dies, which is literally her head explodes.
She blows her head off. Yeah. She blows her own head off.
Sue made sure that Lin would be safe. Sue was pinpoint accurate with that kill.
Yeah.
Hey, you gotta do. You a Bayfong. You gotta do what you gotta do. But that just goes to emphasize how next level I felt this season was, and obviously when it comes to Korra, we talk about the choreography, the animation. It's all beautiful. It's all done very well. And you can really get behind what Zaheer is saying versus don't get me wrong. Again, first guy, Amon. The separation type of deal, I'm not really feeling that, or the trying to just dominate. I can't think of the exact wording. Just trying to be the superior race or trying to get rid of another race. Not really feeling that. But when it comes to how Zaheer was preaching his anarchy and the way he was establishing things, and you get examples like the Earth Queen. It's like, okay, I kind of feel where you're coming from. Like, even though you're going about it in a cutthroat way, like I understand how you're trying. They paint the picture very well, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Like to where you could at least see where this group is coming from and why they would want to get rid of monarchies, government, and the Avatar.
Yeah, and then the season even goes to show you how a monarchy can be completely corrupt, as we saw with Ba Sing Se. Because, you've got the people living on the outer wall basically living a horrific lifestyle, while the people on the inner, while the people on the inner wall are like basically living it up like kings and queens. And when they break those walls down, you see how what I think is interesting is like their whole idea is that anarchy allows for balance to at some point be reached, but you still have way too much chaos in the first place
and destruction
for that to actually happen. Because when they break down the walls of Ba Sing Se, everything goes to hell. Like it's not like anything good comes from that at all.
Yeah.
But that, I guess that wasn't really his argument. His argument was of freedom. But always, someone else is always going to rise up when you do that. Is kind of the issues here never like acknowledges. Like, yeah, you can create an equal playing field, but somebody's gonna take advantage of that at some point or another. So you could either kill them or, or just kind of accept that. Yeah. So.
And it's crazy too when you look at even the Earth Kings that we've seen in the series. Period, like the Earth Monarchs, I should say. They're all a little off. Like
yeah.
None of them like have a typical like ruling style that seems to work for the majority. Because even the past king with the little platypus bear guy, like he ain't really give a fuck because he also wasn't in charge. So, like, not only do we see one like king who doesn't really like has responsibilities, but is really a figurehead to this maniacal queen. That's if we let her continue, because you also got to think if Zaheer didn't kill her, she was starting a war with somebody. Like she was.
Yeah, she was probably going to go to war with Republic City. Like because she always talked about how Republic City was in Earth Kingdom territory. And like how she wanted them to pay her taxes, so like it wouldn't have been good either way.
Yeah,
right.
But the other thing though that I'm very thankful that they did, and I brought this up earlier in the episode, is we get more of the backstory of other characters. So we get like the backstory of Lin and. Find out more about like how Toph was as a parent, and just like we get basically the expansion of the Beifong family when Sue is introduced, and I think that was a really dope addition to this season, not only because it showed that like both like basically if you're Toph's bloodline you're gonna be cold, but also it also was cool because like we didn't know a lot about Lin as a person other than the fact that she was a tough cop and she and Tenzin had a thing back in the day. And now we get a much better understanding of all of it because they give us a whole Lin backstory episode in this season.
Which is very good.
Yeah, it's great.
But I also just like Lin. Like it's difficult not to like Lin because she's just an interesting character. Like who doesn't like the cool badass woman? Like what like well, I mean, I guess there are people that don't, but
you gotta
we don't talk about those types.
We're not affiliated with those people.
Yeah, no.
But
and then the best part is you get a fight between the two of them. Like that metal bending fight between Lin and Sue was awesome. It didn't obviously lead to that much, but it was great.
Yeah.
This season has some really great fights in it in general though. Just like Zaheer versus Tenzin, for example.
Yeah,
everybody, you have to love that fight.
That fight's amazing.
My boy Tenzin didn't deserve that.
He didn't.
No,
he didn't.
No, but the fact that he was like, "Oh no, he said you pretty good at airbending. Let me show you a master." Quick.
That's the best part. That is the best part.
He was winning.
If it was a straight up fight between Tenzin and Zaheer, Tenzin would have won. The only reason Tenzin lost was because Kaya wasn't able to keep up with Minghua, and Boomy was fighting Gazan. Like Boomy just learned airbending. How's he supposed to fight a lava bender that's strong enough to who like low key based off of his powers alone could have actually been another just main villain of a show. Like this is the first lava bender we've seen. Like that could have been enough to almost end the planet if he felt like it. If he was strong enough. So you're having the new airbender fight him. How is that supposed to be an even fight? So So Tenzin was going to be handicapped from the start, and he still puts up a fight against all three of them until Pai Li hits him with a combustion bang. Like, he literally is fighting off all three of them until, like, he just gets overwhelmed. And then, like, the way that they end that fight with him being like, you're going to have, like, as long as I'm still breathing, you haven't won. And, like, then they, like, they pan away. And it's so brutal. It's such a brutal moment.
I actually love Tenzin. No.
like, I changed my mind. I want him back.
And then, like, I also think, because I'm trying to think, they also gave Tanrak a couple of fights in this season too that I think make up for the L's he took in season 2. Because he, like, fights against Zaheer with Korra for a little bit, and it actually is a pretty dope fight. Like, Tanrak...
And his style is a lot different than the, like, typical waterbender style we've seen. Like, he was a lot more, like, weapons, like, make ice weapons based and not use free-flowing water. Like, when they were climbing up the cliff or, like, trying to, like, catch Korra, like, he was doing a lot of different stuff that I like that we don't get to see with a lot of waterbenders, because usually they use water and they use, like, the ice, like, javelins or whatever you want to call them. And that's basically it. They either freeze, ice javelins, or it. But he was, like, actively using it like a weapon, which I like. There's that's the other thing with Korra is their variability with how these benders are using bending is so different. Like, none of them really fight the same.
Yeah, it's almost like every character has their own fighting style, which is dope, because that wasn't the case in The Last Airbender. They made sure that everyone had their own way of kind of diving in and
being a little more unique.
Yeah.
Which you know makes sense. Because there's not a war going on. So it's not just, hey, we're going to train you to fight, or whatever the situation may be in our specific area. It's like people have a little bit more time to, or don't have as much pressure, and can be a little bit more artistic or be a little bit more creative with how they do things versus just being taught off and sent, you know, to defend or whatever you were doing at that time. So that, again, like you said, Teddy, that it was unique and innovative.
Now, one thing I do want to ask you about Teddy, and this is something that, like, I will always say is an issue I've had with the series, is that they thankfully do address the fact that the Avatar state, I mean, that the connection with the past Avatars is gone, and Korra isn't getting that back, at least at this point of the show.
Right.
What did you think about that decision, as far as, like, making it so that, like, she's kind of on her own in a way that the other avatars aren't, and kind of has to take an L that other avatars never had to sit with? Like, in my opinion, the writers were overly harsh to Korra to build her character up, because they made her so strong at the start that they had to really nerf her to make her more of a relatable protagonist, if that makes sense.
Yeah, so for me, I think the first time watching it, which had been on its original release, I was kind of shocked. I was like, oh, so she, I guess gone? I guess gone? Right. Like, okay. But watching it as an adult, like, I kind of appreciated it, because I'm looking at, like, had Korra been able to talk to her other past lives, one, I don't really think she would have listened to them that much, to be honest. She might have listened to Kyoshi. She would have listened to Aang because Tenzin told her how amazing Aang was. But I don't really think, like, she wouldn't have listened to Roku. She definitely wouldn't have listened to Roku. Like, so just because of the way her character was, her being alone forced her to grow up. So, like, looking at it as an adult, I'm like, okay, I kind of wish she would have still had access to it, because we might have got some other cool bending techniques just from the past avatars. But really forces her to grow up because she can't lean on anybody else. Like Aang kind of got to lean on his past lives. Like he even went and talked to them. Korra doesn't get to lean on them. Like it's either like you learn what you're supposed to learn, or you're gonna get beaten to the ground.
Yeah, and then I also think that without them, without the past lives kind of compounding and the knowledge compounding into her when she's in the avatar state in and of itself is nerfed and it's a little bit weaker. If that makes sense. Because, like, in my head, like, when Aang was fighting Ozai, Kyoshi took over. Like, that wasn't Aang fighting, that was Kyoshi. And in this,
I can see that.
And in this version, like, since it's just her and Rava, technically, it's basically her just with enhanced powers. Now, those enhanced powers are still great because she basically throws a mountain at Zaheer, but it's still not the same. Like, I feel like if she had full Avatar state and also maybe wasn't being poisoned to death, she would have won that fight pretty easily. Like, even though Zaheer was flying, I still think it. If you had past Avatars plus no poison, I think that the fight's not that close.
I think just the no poison alone, the fight wouldn't have been that close because it wasn't like she was losing that fight. He was running for the majority of the fight, and even says like, "You can't fight me and the poison," because Zaheer knew. He was like, I have to get this poison to spread through her body or she's going to beat me down. Like, there was no, like, their gap was huge, even without having the past avatars. Like, just no poison, I think Korra could have mopped him up.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I see that would be my argument for why, one of the reasons why I still don't like the fact that the cycle was broken / destroyed, because you have Zaheer who, in the Red Lotus, who ends up being great villains, and now it's kind of like a crutch is, well, she wasn't at full power. She was still strong, but in the previous season she lost access to a good chunk of her power. I still personally don't like the decision. I understood why they did it because everything in Korra is about going in a new direction. But I just feel like it was such an integral part of the character of the Avatar to lose access to that. It's just like, okay, this sucks. And then it's not that she completely didn't have people to lean on. Like, as we see, spoilers for season 4, if you haven't watched it, most likely you have. But like you see, she has, she does speak with Zuko. She has Tenzin. She has Toph. She has Lin. Like, she still has a support group around her. It's just she kind of lost an interesting dynamic between her and her past lives. Yeah, and it doesn't really, to me, as CJ was saying earlier, it just seems kind of like brutal because that's something, as you see at the end of Korra, she has to live with that for the rest of her life. And it didn't need to be that severe to me, unless, obviously there are books still coming out for Korra, but and she may get it back. I don't know. It hasn't been shown yet, but it's just kind of rough, and that ties into my second flaw that I have with this season, and that's that I hate the ending of it.
So, like, the very end when she's in the wheelchair and obviously suffering from depression.
Yes.
Now,
I respect it. Yeah, I respect it, and I get it. They're trying to show that this character is not, they're not Superman. They're not perfect. You make mistakes, stuff happens. You be in real life. You are damaged. People get damaged. It's all like they're saying. I get the message that they were sending, but at this point in the story, it is just like they are constantly beating her down, constantly. Yeah. And you see how that affects her in season 4. And I'm just like, man, we had this awesome season, and I just didn't like how they did my girl. And again, I get it. They want to make you feel different. This is a more adult show. There are more themes at play here, and not everything is happily ever after. But I hated that wheelchair thing. I was like, for real? Like, she couldn't just been poisoned. She's poisoned and in a wheelchair.
Like, you couldn't at least put her on crutches. Like, at least give her something a little bit like that shows that she's at least making somewhat of a recovery, because then everyone comments on like, oh, she doesn't look good, everything's looking bad for her, that kind of a thing. It's like, dog, this is a character that's supposed to be this awesome, powerful character, and we get that you guys wanted her to take a few steps back, but my God.
Yeah, it hurts. Like it.
Yeah.
And I get it. I get that it's supposed to hurt, but it's like, man, like she could. This was the season where like she couldn't catch a break. Like
the
entire
entire
point
time
in this season did she have any easy or any like big wins. Like she is going through it the entire season, and it's like, man.
And
but you know how
doing
like,
all this as a 17-year-old girl,
right? And you know how people say like, depending on your views on God, you know, if you don't sit down, God will sit you down.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that was kind of like that was Korra's Avatar world. God's gonna sit you down, because like you need to take it. Like you've been through so much that you haven't taken the time to actually like heal from. Like you gotta think, like the first 2 seasons worth of stuff, she never really got the heals because it was always something else going on. This is her like sit down and grieve the things that have happened to you.
Mm-hmm.
And so like I'm also, for your listeners, I'm a counselor, so I look at a lot of these things through the mental health like lens too. So as I was watching it, especially the second time, especially season 4, but in this season, it's like she didn't get to grieve, and I mean no major protagonists really get to do that. So it's kind of interesting to see them take that risk, because think about like as much things that Goku went to, as much thing as Naruto. They don't really grieve. They just on to the next one, on to the next one, on to the next one.
Yeah.
And that's not really realistic. Like eventually
Right.
there is no on to the next one. It's like, no, like you have to deal with this or you won't be able to do anything.
Yeah,
True.
and then we do see the effects of that happening in season 4.
In season 4. Yeah.
Because as you said, Teddy, they start setting things up for like the subsequent seasons. And in season 4, we are introduced to a certain guard of Zaofu named Kovira. And
She's in season 3.
Yeah, sorry, season 3. We're introduced to Kovira. And we don't know it yet, but she's gonna have a pretty big pretty important role in the next season.
Next up, the bat.
And like the one thing I will say, and this is like a spoiler for season 4, but it's in season 3, so we can kind of address it. I don't see how she became as powerful as she is. Like,
I don't think she was ever weak. You gotta they talk about her being directly trained by one of the greatest metal benders on the planet. So she was probably never weak, but she was just a soldier. So like,
yeah, that's true.
Listened to orders, and then she was giving them. So like, all she did was, now my strength is on front page. That was the only difference, really.
Okay, that's true. Yeah,
and you know there are just exceptional like good benders that exist. So I'm sure, like Teddy said, with her training as well as her probably just natural aptitude, you know, she was a good fighter. It wasn't like she was, as you see throughout in season 4, and we'll talk about that soon. She wasn't unbeatable, but she was highly skilled.
Yeah, exactly.
I actually want to bring up a point that we haven't really gotten to. I love Bolin. And Bolin got so much like growth this season.
Thank God.
But we had another conversation, me and you, off just texting, and I was saying Bolin and Mako actually have 2 huge wins this season that most people kind of glance over. Like people Mako is Diet Zuko, but his win was pretty significant.
Yeah, him beating Minghua was nuts, because she was about to murk him
in a cave
filled with water.
A cave all filled with water, and he still pulled it out. I looking back, watching it the second time, I was like, wow, I did not give him his credit for this. It's that is actually beating a water bender in their natural element, the best possible way they can be, and he still won, is actually pretty amazing.
But what's funny is the way he won is a way that I'm kind of surprised they never did in it's also because they were allowed to be a lot more violent and kill people this season, but like
Right.
you would think that like maybe Azula would have shot lightning at waterbenders at some point, or like
Which ones? I mean, she never really fought a bunch of them, though.
true, it was mainly in the Earth Kingdom, so that's fair.
But it is good they utilized it when they had the opportunity.
Yeah.
And I also think Mako might actually be a better lightning bender than Azula because he gets able to do it a lot quicker.
Oh yeah,
Like, with Azula, you don't really like fighting most waterbenders. You don't, excuse me, have a lot of time to do all that wind up.
Yeah, that's true. That's very true. Mako basically was in a really awkward position and shot the lightning down at the pool. But you want to know part of the reason why I think people don't talk about Mako's win as much? It's because Bolin's win is him unlocking lava bending, which
was great,
amazing. Because you see him struggle with metal bending this whole season, like he just can't do it, and Korra's a natural at it, and it's just like, oh, Bolin's taking in another L,
yeah,
and like because he's taking that L, you're like, because he's taking the L, you're like, man, I hope he at least can beat somebody in a fight. And then he's fighting Gazan, and he ends up lava bending to save Mako and Tenzin, which is amazing.
Yeah, I thought that was really cool. Simply because it makes sense with one of his parents being a firebender and the other being an earthbender. And I'm like, yes, we've been looking for this genetic link for a long time in Avatar. That works for me. Like
it that's the thing. It's the perfect genetic link, like you said. It's a mix of both bending styles.
And who doesn't like to see Bolin win? Like
exactly.
Yeah.
You love Bolin.
Yeah.
You love Bolin.
And after last season, he needed multiple. Because
he needed Nut Tug. That's what he needed. Nut Tug would have got it done.
And what's funny is the best part about Bolin this season is he addresses how like crazy his life has been in the past like 2 seasons. He's like, I was a pro bender. I fought against a bunch of I fought against a Revolutionary War. I fought against a bunch of spear benders. I was a mover star, and it's just like, good God, you've done all of this in like 6 months.
Yeah, lived his best life.
I think overall every character gets a lot of shine, except for maybe Asami. And like Asami at least goes on missions with Korra, so she's obviously still a key character. I just feel like she doesn't get as much as like obviously like the best I feel like the girl character that gets the most play in this season is Jinora, just because like you said, Teddy, she's a airbending prodigy and is possibly this,
which was good.
Yeah, no, it's great. It's great that it's that she's clearly a natural at everything. It's just that I kind of wish they had a little bit more for Asami to do this season, but I mean, you can't win them all.
It's kind of the same as certain characters just aren't going to be as highlighted, especially like the ones without powers, as we've seen in anime. They get further and further left behind. So
yeah,
I get it. Like they did what they could with her, and they did include her. Like they didn't completely forget about her.
Yeah,
like,
they didn't make her 10-10.
Fire Nation, weren't you? Yeah, okay.
Exactly. They didn't make her a 10-10 or a Hime. Like at least she like did stuff.
Yeah, and then when you think about it, like, she was the non-bender on Team Avatar, but she's not as interesting as Sokka.
True.
So, because the Sokka role is being split between Bolin and Mako, like, and then, like, Asami has the non-bender part of Sokka. Like, so, like, she really didn't have the stuff that would warrant one to see.
She got the electric glove, man. You know, Black Power Fist.
She can build a flying.
She has something, but you know, she had a little. Shout outs to Sami. She did what she could.
I mean, and then she has obviously, as we've discussed, she has a more important role in the following season, which I know Shelby doesn't agree with, but we'll save that for season 4 discussion. We'll save that for the season 4 discussion. Ted, I know you gotta get ready to go pretty soon, so we sadly have to wrap up this conversation. But before we go, is there anything else you'd like to add about this season that we haven't brought up yet?
I think one of my favorite moments was seeing Bolin and Mako with their family. Like, them meeting their family in the Earth Kingdom and being accepted so quickly was just great. And it is Bolin being Bolin, so he's loving everybody. And you can't not like a happy Bolin.
Yeah, that's very true. And plus, it also gives us more explanation on their parents, because only thing we knew about them was that they were killed by gangsters when they were young, and that they were a firebender and an earthbender. That's all we really knew.
Right. Also, something else I thought was cool about their family dynamic is how the grandmother is kind of like a representation of what Zaheer is fighting against. Like, in terms of how she like worships the Earth Queen, even though the Earth Queen treats her like garbage, but she's been raised to believe like, oh no, the king, the king or the queen, they're amazing, and that just goes into why more of a reason as to he believes in anarchy and how he wants people to be free.
Yeah, because Grandma wasn't even leaving the crib when everything was burning down.
Yeah. She wanted the picture or something. I'm like, Grandma.
Like, don't do this. Don't do this at all. One thing that we didn't really discuss too much, and this is like a big thing amongst the fandom, is like the fact that like when season 3 was originally airing, people were worried the show got canceled because Nickelodeon shifted it from going from airing on TV to airing on like going online. And
oh, interesting.
And I think that like there's a bunch of rumors that like it was because they decided to kill off the Earth Queen on camera this time, but I've done some research and can actually say it's actually because like Korra aired right around the time that cord cutting was a serious thing, because like apparently no one tuned in to watch Korra on TV after season 2. And like everyone ended up watching it online. So
see, I always thought it was like a dumb idea, and they were like, "We're pushing this out," but that would make more sense, like if they were trying to be ahead of the curve.
Yeah, I mean, Nickelodeon's made a bunch of questionable decisions with this series, as Shelby and I have said. The old executive theory, or as Shelby likes to call it. I don't want to take.
We know what he is. we know it's an old white guy at the top trying to make some money. Like, what? They ain't like the last season. Oh, we gonna do this. Come on, man. We got a good season here. No, the money. But yeah, Teddy, thank you for joining us today. We ain't gonna hold you up any longer, brother.
Appreciate y'all having me.
Of course, man. You got anything you want to shout out before you go, or anything like that?
Yeah, so I am actually working on my own podcast called the Amplified Ignorance Podcast. It's me and a couple of my friends. Okay. We're actually going to start putting out our official episodes at the end of the month, hopefully. But if you want to do a quick thing and just look at us, we're on YouTube. It's under Amplified Ignorance. And we're just talking about the NBA playoffs. So we're using YouTube as like quick stuff, more like,
I love it.
Like little new content, things that are going on immediately. And then you'll be able to listen to us, like our actual full podcast episodes, wherever you listen to podcasts. But that'll be coming out at the end of the month or very early October. And that's the Amplified Ignorance Podcast.
You guys heard it, Amplified Ignorance. If you listen to us, check it out. Feel free to show them some love over there.
Yeah, and I've already listened to a couple of their podcast episode. Specifically, I think you guys did one on like Cartoon Wars. It's some pretty funny stuff, people. So please go check that out. But I think that's gonna do it for us in general. Thanks again, everybody, for tuning in today. Please like, share, subscribe, tell some friends. Do whatever you can to support the podcast, and let us know what you would like us to talk about once Korra is over. We've got a couple of ideas in the tube, but we are completely and utterly willing to talk about other things as well. So If you guys have any interest, please just leave a couple of things in the comments, and we'll make sure to get back to you. But that's going to do it for us. I'm CJ.
I'm Shelby.
And this is A Fan's Perspective, signing out.
We'll catch you next time.